Welcome to Bridges Not Walls. This is our Charleston Jewish Federation's Jewish Community Relations vlogcast. As some of you know, I'm sure we have some folks joining us for the very first time because we have a particularly special guest with us today. Ben Berry grew up in Charleston, made Aliyah, served in Gaza, served in the West Bank and then in Gaza. And has an incredible story to tell. So we will get into that in just a second. But in this part of the program, we always give a few updates. I wanted to share that first in media coverage locally, the Post-10 Courier in Columbia did a big piece about the push to pass a hate crimes bill in South Carolina. And while we lamented the fact that the bill didn't pass this year again, the article goes to great lengths to point out that that 15 municipalities have passed hate ordinances, and I'm proud to say that Charleston Jewish Federation has been the primary catalyst for those hate intimidation ordinances passing. Charleston and Mount Pleasant, Somerville, North Charleston, Columbia, Greenville, all across the state. It's really gained its own momentum now, and this empowers us to respond to incidents of anti-Semitism and label people who are committing hate crimes as people who commit hate crimes. I should let you all know, since a lot of people are joining for the first time, if you comment on Facebook especially, I think possibly on YouTube also, we can see some of those comments. So if you have any questions, please leave a comment. And I will pass those questions along to our guests. Also, I'm very proud to announce that as of literally 5 minutes ago, I can share that Representative Nancy Mace and her opponent, Michael B. Moore, for the South Carolina District 1 U.S. congressional race have both committed to a candidate forum with the Jewish community that will be taking place at BSBI downtown. We're the only organization that I'm aware of, and as per Nancy Mace's campaign, that have secured the commitment of both candidates, and we might be the only organization hosting a candidate forum for the congressional District 1 race before the general election. So I'll have a lot more to share about that soon. It's going to take place on Thursday, August 29th. Also wanted to share, I think we shared on the last episode of this vlogcast that JCPA had been on a program with Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez about anti-Semitism. They were able to get Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez to condemn the protest that took place outside the Nova exhibit. This caused a lot of stirrus in her own Democratic Socialists of America party. And just this week, they announced that they were kicking her out of the party because she had the discussion online with Jewish community leaders about anti-Semitism. This shows obviously the state of anti-Semitism in America right now, but it's a reminder that all of these conversations, although they're really uncomfortable, really lead to positive outcomes. And some leaders are willing to draw a line in the sand when it comes to anti-Semitism. I'm not going to bore you much longer, but I will share that there are several upcoming opportunities to learn more about what's going on in Israel. On July 16th, which is a Tuesday, JFNA is doing a webinar about the latest on developments in the north in the fighting between Israel and Hezbollah. As many of you know, something like 90,000 people are displaced in the north of Israel, and they can't go home because of the rockets and drones and missiles and just constant flurry of explosives that folks there have had to deal with. So JFNA will have the latest on that Tuesday, July 16th. Also, we're continuing on with the Israel Policy Forum Summer Series on Monday, July 2nd. They will have experts to talk about U.S.-Israel relations, the latest. And on August 12th, they will have a program about post-war Gaza. Last but not least, next Thursday, July 18th, if you would like to support Federation and also get a good meal in the process, you can go to Triangle Charm Bar on Thursday, July 18th between 11 a.m. and 10 p.m. If you put CJF on your receipt, some percentage of that will go to Charleston Jewish Federation as a donation. And lastly, I wanted to share that if you are looking to volunteer through a program of Federation called Shalom Charleston, we are looking for ambassadors who would be willing to meet with families that are new to the area and get them plugged into the amazing Jewish community that we have. Normally, this part of the program takes a lot longer, but as I said before, I didn't want to keep you in suspense because we have with us today Ben Berry. Ben grew up here in Charleston, went to Aliyah, made Aliyah, was here on 10-7, but rushed back to Israel to serve in the wake of the attack. And when I was recently in Israel, which I think I shared with a lot of you all, I got the opportunity to sit down with Ben and hear more about his story. And it really made me proud as a Charleston Jew. And I really am excited to have the opportunity to share his story with everyone. So without further ado, I have here live from Ramat Gan, not Tel Aviv, in Israel, Ben Berry. Welcome,
Hey,
Ben.
what's going on? Before we start, funny thing you mentioned Israel Policy Forum. A good friend of mine, Max Webb, actually. Yeah, that's right. You're friends. I'm sorry. We talked about this, actually. I saw him the other day, and they're super great. They actually keep me informed on some stuff that's going on here. So I would really recommend following their content and reading the articles they put up because it's really insightful stuff.
Yeah, they brought me to Washington. Actually, it ended up being right after 10-7. It was scheduled for like a year for this IPF, a TEED convener summit for young Jewish folks, and I was just struck by the depth of their analysis and the nonpartisan nature and the nuance that they bring to the table, and it's really hard to find that kind of voice in the echo chamber, in the jungle of commentary. You don't know who to listen to, and so much of it is partisan or injected with a lot of opinions, and their only aim is a secure democratic Israel with eventually a two-state solution, I think. So
yeah, they actually just concluded a week here where they're able to go around and look at the Nova exhibit that's in the south and visit different kibbutzim and stuff like that. So from what I heard, it was very insightful, gave them a new perspective. And I'm really impressed with how, like you said, they're not really like picking sides, very bipartisan representation of what's going on, which is very important.
Absolutely. Well, speaking of a nonpartisan way to talk about Israel, I'm thrilled to have you with us, and I think I was struck by your story, and I've kind of known you a little bit at distance for a while because you're close with my my little cousins, Rachel and Alan, and so being in Israel, it was so great to have the opportunity to connect with somebody else from Charleston and have kind of a Charleston perspective on everything that had unfolded. But I'd love to start just by asking you, from your perspective, how growing up in Charleston and being part of the Jewish community in the way that you were and going to Adelson, how that factored into your decision to make Aliyah and what that decision-making process was like, because I know a number of your classmates also at Aliyah ended up making Aliyah.
Yeah. One of a few, some notable mentions there is also Benjamin Ellison, Jacques Horseman, Nate Leroy, If I'm forgetting anyone, I'm sorry that I'm blanking right now. But also Daniel Tubiana, don't want to forget him, and Graham Horseman as well. So growing up in Charleston, I mean, it's definitely not a secret that, we're a small, but I consider us at least to be a very strong Jewish community. And part of that is definitely there's a big, especially with the multiple Israeli families that we have there, a big Zionist kind of perspective, right? And always, this kind of like dedication and, promise to help them integrate, but also like be, look after Israel and hopefully one day visit. So learning about Israel all my childhood, growing up in these organizations such as USY, BBYO, even going to a couple of NIFTY events, NCSY, all these things that I was integrated into and basically, constantly around. It really opened my eyes to, like Israel as this big, like it's crazy, like as the Jewish nation, this functioning, thriving state. A lot of perspective was added my first time that I was able to go. Addlestone gave me that opportunity, the rest of my class as well, to travel to Israel. We were there for Yom HaZikaron, which is the Remembrance Day, which is considered the saddest day of the year, and also Yom HaAtzmaut, Independence Day, which is the happiest day of the year. And they're back to back, and being able to go all over Israel and experience that with actual Israelis as well, that was really amazing, and only like strengthened my initial love for Israel. I also have to say, going to Camp Judea in North Carolina, have them right here in my water bottle. That was a huge factor in this. Going there and connecting with like-minded people, and even though it's like a summer camp, but it's kind of a place to get away and relax. Being able to like meet all of the Israeli staff that they bring in was truly amazing. From there, I continued on to Tel Yehuda, which is the kind of the camp where all of the junior camps across the United States mesh together. And then from Tel Yehuda, I made my way on Young Judea's Gap Year course. And there I was able to really learn what it is to live in Israel. Obviously, it's like a structured, kind of like catered program, but showing up in Bat Yam, kind of, meeting the locals and being able to really like live on your own. Like we were in our own apartment for the first time at like 19, like that was really cool. So we spent 6 months in Bat Yam, another 6 months in Jerusalem, and being able to go back and forth between those places, taking trips to the north, south, a little touch of the West Bank. That was really nice to be able to do that and to be able to have all those experiences, especially in such a short amount of time.
Wow.
As a year, yeah.
And did you go on Birthright also?
No, I missed Birthright. I missed it. So anyone who's listening, the best way to do this is graduate high school, directly go on Birthright, and then go on your gap year, because they don't accept you on Birthright in high school, and they don't accept you after you've taken your gap year. So that's like the fine little amount of time that you can go. So as soon as you graduate, sign up, get there, stay there, and then go directly into your gap year.
So, you're all the connections that you mentioned growing up to Israel, I think is illuminating because a lot of people, especially outside of the Jewish community that I talk to, they, especially before October 7th, and I think the attack has led to conversations that have explained this a little better, but people are always confused about why Jews in the United States are so connected to Israel, why we feel the way that we feel when an attack happens in Israel, and how interconnected our communities are. It's not something that I think we talked enough about before October 7th to our friends outside of the Jewish community. And I think now we're we're feeling that, especially with the anti-Semitism that's I mean risen in the United States. Wow, I guess it shouldn't have been so unpredictable that you decided to make Aliyah, given all of the experience
Yeah,
you had growing up.
yeah. I didn't have one thing specifically that connected me to Israel. Obviously, Addlestone is kind of what jumpstarted, and my family is what kind of jump started that initial love for Israel. But through these other programs and communities, I was really able to like strengthen it and learn a lot more than I previously knew. And then just living here, when I came back from my gap year, I just found myself kind of lost. I wasn't expecting that. I was expecting, come back, kind of pick up where I left off, start college, and just didn't go that way. I just couldn't get Israel out of my mind, and I had this idea in the back of my head that I really wanted to go back to Israel, become a citizen, and draft. And yeah, I mean, I came back in May of 2017 for my gap year, and 6 months later, I was already on my Aliyah flight back.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah.
And so, did you speak Hebrew at that point, or?
Oh no, 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 no. Listen. I have surprised all of my Hebrew teachers. Ricky. If I ever get the chance to see him soon, Dror, Shlomi, Sivia, all of them, I really surprise them when I come back, because when I do, I speak to them in like fluent Hebrew, and they're like, "Oh my god!" Because I struggled hard in Addlestone learning Hebrew. When I came, I would say a solid base of like vocabulary, but some things that just like didn't really prepare me. I'm sorry, Rabbi Admon, if he's listening, but all of my years studying Gemara did not prepare me to, be able to start a bank account and get a phone line and all these and health insurance, all these things that I need once living on my own. Coming with that base was helpful, though. I expanded on that in Ulpan, which is a program for, it's for people who make Aliyah, but also just if you're studying in Israel, they also offer it as an option. So being on my gap year, I expanded, and then realizing that I was making Aliyah, I started taking private lessons. I tried to sign up for a class at CFC. Unfortunately, I was not able to. Practicing with friends. And then eventually coming to Israel, studying in the absorption center that I was placed in Renana, and then continuing that. I came with Garin Sabar to Israel, and I kind of had there's this opening kind of bit called Paraklita, which is like your absorption period once you make it to Israel. So during that time, we learned in Ulpan, we learned Hebrew for 4 months, or for 3 months. And I had an extra month between when I officially finished and my draft date. So I approached the principal or like the head, teacher of this program that we were in. And I was like, listen, like I need all the help I can get. I would love to sign up again for the last month that I had. She accepted. So I was able to sign up again, go up a level, and then when I drafted to the Army, I drafted to a base called Michve Alon, which is located in the north in Carmiel. And there I was able to hone in on my Hebrew even more for 3 extra months. And then just being around Israelis, man. I went to a team in the Army. I'm still with them. I love my guys. Not one of them speaks English like I do. There's like one who's like a little below me, but I was kind of thrown in head first. So need to be fast and kind of be able to adapt.
Yeah, you don't want to get blown up for lack of understanding Hebrew words.
No. A good tip that my grandfather gave me, Jerry Rothschild, he said, shoot where they're shooting and run where they're running, but don't run where they're shooting and shoot where they're running. So that really helped me out.
That sounds like grandfatherly advice.
Yeah.
So that actually leads right into where I was headed next. Obviously, if you're an Israeli citizen, with some exceptions, you serve in the military as part of being a citizen, and if you make Aliyah and you're fighting age, you serve in the IDF. What for soldiers that come from outside of Israel, who are new to Hebrew, who are new to the country, they're called lone soldiers, right? What was
Correct.
what was that like for you?
So I want to clarify the term a little bit. Lone soldiers isn't just for people who come from out of the country. It's also there's Israeli lone soldiers as well, and they're kind of an unknown community. But it's just people that don't really have the support of a family unit behind them to help them with like their everyday needs, right? So people who were previously very religious and left the community, people who unfortunately their parents have passed away. So people who've been forced to grow up very fast and very difficult challenges, they're also considered lone soldiers. It's definitely a learning curve for everyone. I think if I'm right, the statistic is at any given point in the Army, there's around 5,000 lone soldiers. So it's a small community, but very tight knit. And a lot of the friends that in the community that I built in Israel is off of lone soldiers. My girlfriend was a lone soldier. All of my roommates were previous lone soldiers. And there's a lot of organizations here, especially that have really made it their goal to help us as much as possible, getting us furniture, making sure that we have food, washing our clothes on the weekend, like anything that they've been able to give and to do for us, they have. And it's been so like extremely helpful. I can't thank any one organization enough. They've really like along the way, they've just been an amazing help. Saved tons of money, stress, just and for nothing in return, just like a thank you. And it's really great to have that community here and have those people kind of around us.
Well, that's great to hear. I know that folks in Charleston gave really generously, always give really generously, but especially Post-10 and a lot of people have a hard time picturing like what happens when that money gets to Israel, like what
Right.
specifically it goes to. So it's really great to hear that that Charleston is having an impact.
Yeah, I was very grateful to the Charleston community. In 2 weeks, actually, from when I realized like that we did not have the gear that we needed, in a matter of 2.5 weeks for my team, we were able to raise $17,000, and that was super helpful. That got us like literally like life-saving stuff. So I cannot thank my family who helped in the Jewish community, the Chabad. They really stuck their neck out for us and really provided like a service that like me and my team like will never be able to thank you enough for doing that.
That's great. So that being said, how long did you serve in the IDF before your first round of duty, like your first, I guess after you first made Aliyah?
Okay, so I made Aliyah in December of 2017, and I drafted in April of 2018. After that whole Paraklita period that we talked about. So drafted Mikveh alone, 3 months. And then after that, once I finished my Hebrew course, I went on to like my actual unit. So I redrafted to Givati. I really wanted to be in Givati. We have the purple berets. I wish there was something in the periphery in my room I could grab to kind of show you, but it's kind of all put away in the moment. But super great unit. And I really wanted to be there because I knew when it came to lone soldiers, they were actually tied for the unit with the lowest amount, them along with Border Patrol. And making it there, right, was this kind of thrown in headfirst deal where like no Americans, okay. The other lone soldiers that are here are French, so like can't talk to them at all. So really using that new Hebrew that I had and being able to utilize it was great. I did a full service. I did 2 years and 8 months. I was in Sayeret Givati, so it's like the Special Forces unit of Givati, and we're, regular infantry, something called Pikud Davom, which is like the Southern Command. So during my time, I did a regular 8-month training period, followed by 7 extra months of advanced training specifically for the Special Forces unit. And then directly after that, we finished our training, and once you're out of your training, there's kind of like this rotation that happens where it's 4 months training and 4 months deployment. So I released specifically during a training period for the last like 3 weeks of it. And then we went directly to Nablus, which is kind of a hotbed in the West Bank for terrorist activity. After there, 4 months of training. Then Jenin, which is considered the #1 hotbed for terrorist activity in the West Bank. And then I did another period of training towards the end of my service where during that time, we did a lot of something called like Tigbolim, where you go and you help different units for a period of time. So during that time, we were in Ramallah and different areas of the West Bank, helping them on weekends, some full weeks. Sometimes we were there, 2 weeks at a time, 3 weeks at a time. So I've spent roughly around 11 months of my life prior to this war in deployment in the West Bank. I had never been to Gaza before, not even the border, before this whole war started.
Wow.
And I got out in December of 2020, peak COVID. And I've just kind of been working, studying ever since.
And what kind of stuff were you doing in the West Bank?
We were doing different missions. I can't get into the details of everything. We were doing different arrests and things like that, making sure that the communities there were protected and guarded. A lot of guard duty. Stopping the occasional riot that would happen. But mainly working off of, that was like the first deployment I did was mainly focused on controlling like different riots that would break out, different communities that were a little in danger of close kind of activity that was going on to them. And then my second deployment was more focused around arrests and mission specific, working off of intel that we had on certain people to bring them in and jail.
Understood. So fast forward, you're going to school. You were here on for high holidays. And I think a day that will live in infamy for the Jewish community around the world. 10/7 happens. Hamas terrorists have overrun the border wall and are attacking civilians at the Nova Music Festival, at Kibbutzim, observers, and there's a lot of conflicting information going around. What was your experience in finding out about what was happening back home and getting over there?
So 10/7 was definitely very interesting for me. I was working security down at Shem Creek during this whole thing when it broke out, and the first text I got was just from like a friend who was in the IDF with me. He had just moved back to Los Angeles, and he said, "Hey, just so you know, there's rockets." Okay, I don't want to say that lightly, but it's like, okay, like Israelis were used to like rockets, and especially after the summer of 2022. So I didn't really give it, much thought. Like, okay, there's a couple of rockets, whatever. I opened my app, Red Alert, And I noticed that it just kept on like updating and updating and updating and updating and updating. It's an app that tells you everywhere in the country that a rocket is over, the Iron Dome is kind of detected. And it kept on going and going and going. And I'm like, okay, something's really weird here. And it was still like super early in Israel, right? Around like 5:30 a.m., 6 a.m. Some friends that I had here, some group chats started becoming like more aware, a little more active. People started waking up, sending messages, sending videos, pictures of stuff that they had seen on the news, or stuff that other people were sending them, stuff that they got off of Telegram. And it was hard to kind of like paint a picture of what was going on, right? Especially, we didn't really know until like a day later about what happened at Nova and the different kibbutzim. There's people saying there's Hamas terrorists inside of Israel. I was like, no, there's no way. There's people saying, no, that's not true. Those are videos from a different war before. So piecing everything together was like super hard to figure out. I called my girlfriend once I got off work. I got off work at like 2 a.m. Went home, called my girlfriend. We stayed on the phone for like 2 hours trying to piece everything together. And actually before this, I forgot to mention, I called my roommates and I was like, hey, get in the bomb shelter, trying to like I woke them up basically. And they were like, what are you talking about? Went back to sleep, and they called me 30 minutes later and they're like, hey, like we're all here. So it was good to know from a very very fast that they were safe. Called my girlfriend. We were up until like 4:30. And I didn't even like go to sleep. Like my head just like fell and hit the pillow. I woke up 3 hours later, called a friend of mine from my unit, and I was like, hey, did we get called up? And he's like, yeah, get back here as fast as you can. So I was trying to figure out how to do that. And then directly after, I was thinking like, okay, how do I do this? I'm sure flights are probably going to be more expensive. Maybe there's no flights going on right now. As soon as I got off the phone with him, my friend who had sent me the message about the rockets called me, and he's like, hey, I'm buying a ticket right now. Do you want one? And I was like, yes, please. And yeah, he got me a ticket, and I started just putting all my stuff together. I literally, after that, threw all my stuff in a bag. I was like going down, like grabbing different things that I was sure that I needed. And I went and told my parents that I was going back. They weren't super aware of what was going on, but they knew that there was trouble in Israel. And, obviously it's very hard for them to hear like, hey, there's a war, I'm going back for it. But yeah, I was supposed to be in Charleston another 2 weeks, and I left that afternoon at 3. Made my way to my buddy in Los Angeles, and then flew to Israel the next day. When we landed, it was, I want to say like a ghost town, but it was a ghost country. No one outside, super eerie feeling going on. On our flight back, when we got into Israeli airspace, all of us stood up and sang the Atikva, the national anthem. It was a very surreal, very, very interesting moment because we don't know what to expect, right? This is a bunch of other Israelis who also weren't in the country, and they're coming back to like what's going on. Loved ones missing, displacement, all kinds of catastrophe. So I got back. We went to my buddy's house. We grabbed like 2 uniforms that we had, made it over to my apartment, and grabbed I had a 30-year-old vest and like a 50-year-old helmet, and I gave him the helmet and I took the vest. He went to the north and I made my way down to the south. During the first kind of period of time in the war, there was no public transportation, which is usually what I would use to get to base, but there were group chats of regular civilians volunteering their time, their cars to get soldiers to base. So I connected with a guy. He was able to pick me up in the morning, and I drove down to base in the south near Beersheba, a place called Badachad. It's where officers do their training at. Got what little gear they could offer me, which was basically like 6 magazines and a gun, and some uniforms, and that's why I had that old vest, and that's what I went with. I had to stay there for a day because they didn't have any military vehicles that could take me to where my team was already. They were in Re'im, which was one of the kibbutzim that was originally attacked. So I met them there, the first day. And if I could actually share a photo, an interesting.
Please.
Yeah, it was actually an interest. So I have to find this really quick. One moment, of something that happened the night before I actually was able to get there and meet up with my team. When sorry.
No problem.
Okay. So basically, what had happened right before I got there, one of my commanders was attacked. I was told when I got to base, don't grab a personal weapon. You're going to be on the heavy machine gun. That's going to be your job. I said, fine, I won't. I heard something happened, and then I was like, okay, like get me a gun. Like, we're not taking any chances here. And actually what had happened was, and I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Yep, go ahead and share. And can you see what I have on, or?
I see an email from me.
Okay. So I have that. Okay, so maybe I have the wrong thing up. I'm not good at sharing. 1 second. Basically, my commander had been attacked by a terrorist. Thank God my team was able to neutralize him. But during that time, he was lightly injured. He had seen something out of the corner of his eye. A terrorist came behind him, shoved his fingers in his mouth so that he couldn't yell, and brought a knife to his throat. The first thing we learned is that if we can't use our gun as our primary weapon to shoot, you can still use it as a weapon to hit someone with. So he brought the gun up and hit the terrorist in the head. They both fell. He broke his shoulder, and he was able to get away. My team neutralized him. But the reason that he didn't die from the knife being brought up to his throat is when he brought his gun up, the strap covered his neck. And by doing that, he sliced the gun strap instead of his neck. So he had a couple of scratches, but 2 huge cuts in the gun strap that was covering him and protecting him. So that was like our introduction to the war. That was like the first thing that happened. Second day, like, here you are.
And that was still in the envelope or in Gaza?
That was in Re'im, the kibbutz.
Wow. So there was still, after October 7th, there were still terrorists like milling.
Correct. Yeah, we were told that the area had been cleared, and it had been cleared by 2 separate teams before us. But obviously there was probably just like some stragglers behind, or this might have not even been, Hamas. There was regular civilians that crossed into regular Gazans that crossed into Israel as well. So this might have, just been like a non-affiliated guy, considering that he didn't have a weapon, he didn't have a vest, but he did, try to take his opportunity to end another Israeli's life, and I'm thankful that he didn't in the end. And that was like just, surreal. Like, that's our first kind of like introduction. Like, okay, you're here. This is war. This is what's happening. Also being able to see the destruction and the devastation that happened at the kibbutz, cars that had been lit on fire, every building you saw, the locks kind of with bullet holes in and around them, blown off. It was very hard to kind of go around and see that. When my team got there, there was bodies of not only terrorists but also civilians there, and they had to witness all of them get loaded up and taken away. So just like jumping straight into that was super hard, and it was super it was like really it was scary, to be honest. Like it's a scary thought that at any moment like something could happen. There was a lot of explosions the first couple of weeks. It was just like artillery just shooting into these hubs where the rockets are getting shot off. So there's just like explosions going off every second. You don't know where exactly, but that they're close. So dealing with that and kind of like adjusting on a moment's notice to this it was really kind of strange. I'm glad that my service prepared me for it. But I don't think anyone thought that this was like the all of our worst fears basically coming true. I don't think that anyone thought that something on this type of scale could actually happen, right? If you had asked me a week prior, do you think that Hamas is going to break through the gate, bring thousands of terrorists into the country, kill thousands of Israelis, I would have told you that you were crazy. And here we are 9 months into this war, still have 100 of our hostages, being held in Gaza, and we're still losing people every day. And it's definitely upsetting to hear about that and to have to deal with it.
So in your time in Gaza, what were you doing most of that time? You were on patrols. I remember you mentioned, and
yeah. So our first week we kind of jumped around. Like I said, I met my team in Re'im. We were there for a couple of days. We moved on to a place called Shukda, which is another kibbutz. They didn't get no one was able to break in there, just some people around the periphery. We guarded there for a couple of days, and then we went to Kibbutz Magen. Kibbutz Magen did have an attempt of infiltration. It was thwarted by like the Go team of the community. They've always been a little paranoid, so when they heard the rockets, they had someone go up to be a lookout at the highest point of the kibbutz. From there, they saw all of the trucks full of Hamas terrorists coming towards them, and they warned the Go team. So they went out and they neutralized approximately 40 terrorists that were trying to break in. They had RPGs fired at them. They fired. One of the guys got shot in his leg. He survived. A 60-year-old man, but luckily they did not have anyone make their way into the community. We made it there a couple days after that. We did a preliminary sweep of a factory that they had there. And from there, we stayed in the community and around the area, which is like right next to Gaza, probably like a kilometer away, for about a month and a half. Again, during this time, we're all sleeping in a kindergarten. We're trying to figure out like what's going on, piece things together. You still don't know what's happening, right? We're like a week and a half in by the time we make it to Magen, this place that we're going to stay for an extended period of time. And, we're getting different intel from different places. Some people are, trying to find their friends and their family. Unfortunately, some people in my team, a dear friend of mine on my team, his uncle was a police officer in Sderot that was murdered on the 7th of October. And another person on my team had 4 friends that were murdered at the Nova Festival. I also have a friend, her sister was murdered there as well. Luckily I didn't know anyone that was there that was killed, but it's still very unfortunate. And it's, it's important to, like lend them your support and let them know, how you feel and you're sorry for their loss, and kind of letting them heal in their own way. So while in Magen, we're doing patrol, and we, we're going out guarding different roads, making sure that only military vehicles are getting into certain areas, and just trying to figure out when we're making it into Gaza. Like I said, we stayed in Magen for around a month and a half. And then we moved to an area called Ein Shlosha, which is like a little bit closer, again, like a half kilometer closer to Gaza. So every day we kind of like woke up and like, looked straight out at Gaza. And the area that we moved to, Ein Shlosha, is right next to Kibbutz Nir Oz. We were also doing guard duty at Kibbutz Nir Oz. And there, just the things that I saw were just absolutely just devastating. I saw a school there where every single door, like I said before, had their locks blown off. This was one of the communities that there was significant intel on Hamas's part gained about them, where certain families lived, how many children they had, if they had dogs or not, stuff like that, so they could know where to go right away to get the most amount of casualties as possible. Going there, seeing that, taking those pictures, the destruction of the houses. They had an RPG that hit their front gate. Going around there and seeing all those things, it was really, it was just super depressing. And, seeing the pain that was caused to that community, it was super upsetting. And, you have families that were coming back, and some people that, were just trying to, if they had a play, taking the remains of whatever their house was or whatever they still had there, and moving to their new location. It was really, upsetting to see that and talk to them and hear their stories. It was also very powerful too, to, hear about their resilience in such a horrible time. So going around there, doing different patrols, obviously we had a few incidences of some close calls. Me and my team, while out on a patrol, had a rocket fall about 20 yards away from us. We were sitting on our Hummers. We were right next to this factory outside of Nir Oz. We heard the siren. Where we were, we had 8 seconds to get to cover. So we didn't have enough time to run into the factory. We ran behind it and just like jumped and took cover. And then just like a huge, just like, a whistle, and then just like huge crash. Like it felt like it was right next to us, ground shaking. I just like in shock did something really stupid. I turned around and just had a bunch of rocks just like hit me in the face. And yeah, that was crazy. We got extremely lucky. There was a 18-wheeler driving by on this like small dirt path right next to us when it happened, and like their windshield just shattered. The driver was pretty shaken up. And after that, we ran into the factory, kind of like recouped. It's like, okay, like, make sure everyone's hearing is fine. Yeah, and that was very, it was a close call. We also had a unit close to us that, while on a patrol, they did get, they had a rocket fall like right next to them, had a couple of guys that were injured. So had to get them out of there. So during this time, we're still doing our patrol along the border of Gaza, doing different exercises to prepare us for going in. And then I can't remember the day, but sometime in late November or like early December, we went into Gaza. Into the village of Khilbat Akzia, and we were able to. Our objective was to basically capture a main road. We were able to do so with no casualties, thank God. And we were there for about 2 weeks during my time there. Took a bunch of pictures, some of the destruction that had happened, and in the village, and also like across other areas of Gaza. We pulled out in, I would say, like late December, something like that. And we thought we were done. That is not what happened. Unfortunately, at the end of January, while on a joint activity, our Palhan, which is like the destruction unit, the demolition unit, was on a joint. They were in a joint activity with Handasa Klavi, which is like the official, like, this is like a team. The Palhan is like a team that does, demolition, and Handasa Klavi is like an entire unit. Like, that's their specialty. That's what they're in charge of, like blowing up tunnels, blowing up houses, different things like that. So they're on a joint activity. They had set up a bunch of charges to blow up 2 houses that, like different, a tunnel had been found nearby, and different, vests and other terrorist kind of like material was found. While it was set to be demolished, some Hamas operatives popped out of a tunnel nearby, shot at the house, and unfortunately everyone inside, because the charges were already set, were killed, and they were crushed under the buildings. The buildings collapsed. During that time, my team and I had just gone up to patrol. We got called and were told that, 2 soldiers had been injured, shot by an RPG. We have to go in and get them out, get them to safety. That had been my team's task this entire time. Okay. When we got there, we realized it was much different, because usually when you get to the border of Gaza, there is a period where you wait for permission to go in from like a different intel unit that's kind of like watching the area. And we did not wait for that permission at all. We went straight in. We were met by some higher up commanders and officers. Instantly went in. We're running into gunfire. Seems like it's from all different directions, providing cover fire and protection for us. And then we immediately started a sweep of the buildings. My team was able to retrieve 3 fallen soldiers. We crawled under kind of the remnants of the house and carried them out. And overall, there was 21 in total that died.
Wow.
Deadliest event that had happened in the IDF since what's called Iruwa Mesokim, which is like this kind of infamous helicopter crash that happened in the 90s. Highest casualty event out of any ground operation that Israel's conducted. And it was very, very upsetting, to have brothers in arms, people that I had been living next to, serving in reserves with, just taken away in an instant. And the holes left, in the hearts of their families. We went and, visited their families during the Shiva process and invited them later for different ceremonies we had in their honor. But it was very hard seeing something like that and seeing such senseless and preventable death.
Can't imagine going through that.
Yeah, I had a very close friend of mine that visited Charleston last summer. He was in those houses like 15 minutes prior, so he could have easily been one of those guys if he had just, um, hadn't been called out right beforehand. So it was very hard doing that and kind of having to deal with that, and now having that experience of bearing witness to that. It's been a tough 9 months for everyone in Israel. I don't think there's a single person here that hasn't experienced a loss. But being through these situations, it really only makes us stronger, more united, which is definitely something we need right now as a country, and honestly, as like a greater Jewish community of the world.
I'm with you on that. I can't I can't imagine going through what you've been through and serving in the way that you have. And I just, there is a misconception in the out, and I think a lot about what folks outside of the Jewish community are saying, because it's my job in some ways to respond to them. But there's a misperception that the Israeli forces are, these big bad RoboCops with all the latest like
Yeah.
weapons, and they're marching into places where people are Hamas is wearing rags and throwing stones and you even and the story that you just told, the fact that they were able to kill all of these soldiers at once, and the kind of gear that you're finding as you're doing patrols, it's not the case at all.
Yeah, I mean, that was a big mistake of ours during leading up to the war, is that we severely underestimated Hamas's capabilities. And that led to a similar to like Yom Kippur situation, right, where we had this surprise attack. We weren't prepared. I mean, like I said, the Charleston community helped as much as they could in terms of getting us gear that we severely needed. But just the level of unpreparedness that we kind of had as a nation, and as what's supposed to be one of the strongest militaries in the world. It was very disheartening, and it was very hard to kind of like cope with that. And I mean, everyone in a sense kind of became like an arms dealer overnight. Everyone was pulling on every single string that they had and calling everyone that they knew. And yeah, to be able to have kind of like this instant support from the Jewish community, and be able to find all this equipment that was so severely needed was amazing. But a part of me is kind of upset at the country for not having that ready for us.
Well, I don't want to keep you too long because I can see it's getting darker over there, and reminding you that it's about to be Shabbat. But
it is
Abby Levine, who I think just
I also
shared this comment.
Thank you so much.
That I think epitomizes how we all feel about you and about the other Charlestonians that are serving in the IDF and have served in the IDF. I think so many of us look helplessly in some cases at what happened in Israel, and very few of us made the sacrifice of flying halfway around the world to pick up a gun and walk into the place where these terrorists who committed these atrocities are entrenched. And anyways, we're incredibly proud. If you could, before you leave for Shabbat, you shared with me before we got on the call that even though now you're discharged and you're to some degree and you're back catching up with the schooling that you had to leave in the middle of your semester, you're already scheduled to go back on reserve duty.
Yeah.
That seems to be the experience that a lot of Israelis are having.
Yeah, so I initially spent 153 days in reserve duty. That's very long for anyone who's familiar with how long reserve duty usually is, which is about like a week, sometimes up to a month, a year. So 153 days in one go was not an easy feat. I do have another month coming up, basically all of September. I am in reserves again in the West Bank. Hopefully, Bezrat Hashem, everything will go great. And yeah, one thing that you said is, not all of you picked up a gun and made your way out here, but I do appreciate the Charleston community, honestly, from the bottom of my heart. Some of the most amazing people I've ever met in my life. Some of the most Zionist, Israel, just loving, amazing, open people that I've ever had the privilege to know. And without them, I wouldn't be here. But also just thank you for all that y'all have done, whether that's, in your personal communities, reaching out, making sure we're okay, donating money, donating time, speaking up for the Jewish community as a whole and for, Israel. That's a great service that, I haven't had the opportunity to do except for on a couple of forums like this. So thank you to all of you, really, and all the work that you do, Brandon. It's amazing. Truly. And I can't, thank you enough for having me and having me share my stories here. I also sent you all my photos, so feel free to share those with anyone you feel like. For anyone who doesn't know, I didn't do a good job of explaining, but I brought disposable cameras into Gaza so that no one could, there's kind of been, like you said in the beginning, these, conspiracies and stuff like that what we're doing is crazy and inhumane. So I took physical film to make sure that everyone could see that, these aren't manipulated. This is what I saw. This is, you can hold it in your hand and witness the destruction, the activities that we're doing, and basically, everything in between.
Well, we'll definitely share those. Again, thank you so much for everything that you've done and for coming on here and telling your story and putting a human Charleston mensch of a face on everything going on in Israel and what the IDF is doing. We're incredibly lucky to have somebody like you representing us over there. And to your last statement about people doing various things from Charleston and around the world for Israel. I have actually another guest with us. Eileen Chepnik is our former president of Federation, former professional of Federation, former director of Trident Literacy, and recently Eileen went to Israel on a mission with other Jews from Charleston around the Southeast to pick up some of the duties besides military duties that Israel is in need of right now. And I really wanted her to have the opportunity or for the community to have the opportunity to hear a little more about what she did and hopefully be inspired to help in ways that may not be volunteering for the IDF. So Eileen, welcome.
Thank you so much.
So Ben, who are your parents? I'm sure I know them.
My parents are Michael and Denise Berry.
Oh, okay.
My Berry's wholesale.
Okay, so I just did bingo with them the other night.
Oh, okay, yeah, that's right.
Yes, and then is your uncle Marty Berry?
My uncle is Marty Berry.
Okay, so he's been taking care of our yard for a million years now.
There you go, yeah.
And I also went to Camp Tel Yehuda when I was a teenager a few years ago, and I have cousins. I was in Ramat Gan when I was in Israel. I stayed a few extra days. I have cousins who live there, so I sort of know exactly where you are.
Yeah.
So world.
Yes, and then after my mission, I also went to Kibbutz Chatzeirim in the Negev, right near the envelope, and those other kibbutzim and Ofakim that were attacked. So it was all very meaningful. So,
Well,
like
thank you.
you, I was a strong Zionist, like every Jew I know practically. And after October 7th, I just felt like I had to do something. The rallies that we had and the marches, and we were wearing blue ribbons in solidarity. It just wasn't enough. And I didn't want to go just on a solidarity mission and meet with different people. I wanted to do something. I just felt I had to physically do something to help. So there was a mission that came about that included all these things. So, and it was for the Southeast. We have a partnership with the Hadera region. So there were 9 different communities, just 24 people on our mission. So we went to some moshavim. I was picking tomatoes and stringing up cucumbers and picking papayas and refurbishing a community center and visiting the Golani military base and meeting with filmmakers. Can't remember now. The Ehud 710, I think, was the name of the project that is interviewing survivors of the attacks. And so for me, it was a quick mission. It was just like 4 or 5 days of work, constant work, and meeting with people, and then the few extra days that I did stay. But I felt like it gave me the feeling of doing something and being there and being supportive, and I felt like it was as appreciated by everyone there. As much as meaningful as it was for me, it was equally meaningful for everyone else. And it just gave me great peace and satisfaction and joy and connection, and makes me want to make Aliyah.
Well, yeah, always a place for Shabbat if you end up doing so.
Oh, thank you. So, I mean, I'm happy to answer any questions if anyone has any. I can't wait to go back. I don't really, have a plan, but I am going to sign up for Hebrew at the college in the fall and try to, be prepared. You never know what the future is going to hold.
Absolutely.
So kudos to you for all you've done. Next time you're in Charleston, you have to speak to the community, because there are so many people who need to hear about your experience, really need to hear about it. And, there is a mission being planned from Charleston later on in the year. And Brandon, I'm going to send this in as a suggestion. We need to get together, all of you young people. How old are you, Ben?
I'm 26.
Yeah, so I have a granddaughter who's 26. So we need to get you all together and meet with people on this mission and let them hear about your life and your feelings and what you've done, why you made Aliyah, what you're doing. Your experience in the IDF is just, I could listen to you all day long.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate that. And yeah, hopefully, God willing, when I'm back in Charleston, I'll be able to organize something like that, a sit down, talk to people, answer any questions, because I know that there's, an hour to do so. It's a limited amount of time. But anyone who wants to take down my information, Brandon, feel free. My email you have is, if anyone's watching this, if anyone wants to ask me anything, Benjamin Berry, Berry, 1197 @gmail.com. And my number, I'll go ahead and write it in the chat right here, is +972 53717 4717. Shoot me a message on Facebook or an email. I'll call you, because I have international calling. I don't want anyone to take that charge. So I'll be able to call you, You won't have to pay for anything. And yeah, any questions anyone has anytime, I'm more than happy to answer.
Just want to add, I have a PowerPoint of my trip that I presented at my Rotary Club. And it's true, people just don't understand what's going on. And it helps so much to have visuals, show the area, little tiny Israel surrounded by all these countries. And
yeah, being attacked on all sides.
Yeah.
But we'll get through it. We have before and we will again.
So that's another thing that I found so shocking, that even though people are devastated and, the shops aren't as busy and the restaurants and all. So at the same time that they're devastated, they're saying what you're saying, we'll get through it. We'll sing again. We'll dance again.
Absolutely.
I went to the Nova Festival site. I don't know if I mentioned in that was so moving to see all the memorials all around. It's incredibly moving.
Eileen, when I was in New York, I went to New York the week after I was in Israel, and they had the Nova exhibit there that was infamously protested by folks waving Hezbollah flags and just insanity. So they extended it, and I was there during that extension period, and I went, and to your point about the spirit of We Will Dance Again, all the funds that they're raising at this exhibit are going to buy a piece of property in a kibbutz right near where the original Nova site was. They're building centers for survivors and their families to come and get trauma therapy, and they plan on camping together and holding more events, and they've really become a stronger community around what happened there. But what you said earlier, Eileen, is what I kept hearing in Israel. First of all, the only people that weren't Israeli on my plane were people that were flying there not for tourism, but to lend a hand in some way. And people were so grateful just to see Americans Jewish Americans coming to Israel to visit, support the economy, to lend a hand. It's so needed, and I mean, the tourism, Ben called it a ghost country when he went, and it's not a ghost country now, but the tourism that you normally see in Israel, especially the Christian tourists and other folks that are normally supporting the economy, these taxi drivers are struggling to make a living, and all these tourist dependent industries are really hurting.
My friends who live on kibbutz Hatzerim, the kibbutz was bringing in 300 prefab homes for survivors of Be'eri, which is like the next one over, I think, to come and live until they can move back into their own homes.
It's crazy. The hotel that I was at in Jerusalem, and this wasn't very long ago, in the weeks before I had gotten there, it was completely occupied by displaced people from the South, who still months later hadn't returned to their homes, and now they're returning to their homes, and they're hearing explosions in the distance, and it's still very much a re-traumatizing setting for some of them, and it's I don't think people realize the extent to which Israelis are being impacted every day by this war, and still by 10/7, and the hostages remaining in captivity. But Ben, I wanted to share, we had a meeting with BSBI last week, and one of the things, when I mentioned that you were going to be on this program, one of the things that the rabbi said is he would love to partner on hosting you and other soldiers from Charleston when you're in town for a holiday or to visit your families, to get a bunch of people together to hear from you all about your experiences. And I tell elected officials all the time, we're talking about Israel like it's this country thousands of miles away, and it is, but there are kids who grew up in Charleston that are serving in this war, and there are Charlestonians on the ground there, and we don't just talk about being connected with with Israel. We have, some of us have one family member here, one family member there. Eileen, so the vegetables that you're picking and like the community center that you were working on, who's normally doing those jobs that
So that's why there's such a shortage of workers, because so many people were called up to serve in the reserves, and also a lot of the workers were from Thailand. And you might remember that some of the Thais were hostages in the beginning. They were the first ones released, and we learned that was because the Thai government Hamas made a deal with the Thai government, said, we'll release the hostages if you take all your workers out of Israel. And so this moshav that we were picking tomatoes and cucumbers, they're Thai workers. One day a truck drove up and all their Thai workers left. So there's just such a shortage of workers that they're depending on volunteers to do it. So after we left, there was another busload of volunteers that was coming in to do this. It's
wow.
acres and acres of greenhouses with these tomatoes growing and cucumbers, and just acres and acres. I don't know how they can get it all done.
And Israel's very dependent on their like domestic produce.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's like 80% of the cucumbers in Israel come from this moshav that we were on. And the tomatoes that we picked were we finished up in the late afternoon, and they were going to be taken right to the market.
Wow. So were there folks from Hadera that met y'all down there in the moshav you were on?
Well, I guess the moshav was in Hadera, and I'd have to look up the name of it. I mean, I have to look it up. I just don't remember. But you know, when the community center and some food banks where we, you know, boxed up all this Passover, but it was just before Passover, packed up all these Passover boxes to send out over 100 boxes from one Chabad in one of the nearby communities. Yes. So, so we met the people who were in the Hadera region. We stayed in a hotel in Zikron Yaakov.
Oh, it's such a nice area.
Yeah. So it was nice. You know, that's part of the benefits of the partnership, is to have like a little section that, you know, you can call your sister city or whatever you want to call it. But
there's also in Pardes Chana, actually, a Charleston local, Jasmine Hubara, spent around a year there. I was able to see her during her time here. She was teaching Israelis about Southeastern Judaism.
Yes, really yes. Well, I'm very dear friends with her grandparents, and of course, and Daphne too. Yes, of course. So Pardes Chana, yes, we were there. That's where this community center was. I'd have to look up the name of it.
They were there through the partnership through our Partnership Together program. She was there as a reverse shlicha.
Yeah.
Yes.
Her picture is on the front page of the brochure about the partnership.
Wow.
It's amazing.
Well, Ben, I know it's veering into Shabbat, and
a little late for me. I'm sorry.
And we're running a little longer than this usually runs. But if anybody wants to get in touch with Ben, he's shared some of his information. We kind of put it up on the banner below, but I will make sure that it's also available underneath this program, which the recording is on YouTube if you want to share it with somebody, and on Facebook and Instagram. And hopefully we'll be able to offer some more opportunities for people to connect with Israel, to go and volunteer, get their hands dirty like Eileen did. And of course, there will be a mission coming up there'll be a mission coming up that Eileen mentioned. I think we're planning for. What do you remember? What month it's going to be?
I'm thinking December.
December.
And anyone from Charleston, if they find themselves in Israel, more than welcome to come, stay at my place. I would love to host, not too many, but I would love to host anyone that I can. It would mean a lot to me.
Oh, I think I just froze. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
I can hear you. You are frozen, though.
Okay, so with that, it's a good time to end our stream. Go to jewishcharleston.org for more information or to sign up for The Voice to get updates about what's going on in the Jewish community. And have a great Shabbos. Thank you, Ben and Eileen.
Thank you. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.